When I say the word nuclear, you probably think of bombs, right? Well, what if I told you that it's also being used to produce electricity today? Let's go back to 1938, when German physicists discovered atoms could be broken apart, creating a burst of energy. This discovery, called fission, coincided with the start of World War II. As war spread across Europe, fear that the Nazis would use this technology to make a bomb drove the US to fast-track research in nuclear energy. Ultimately, it was the Americans who used the nuclear bomb to end the war. In the decades that followed, the technology that built the bomb was reused to create a clean, renewable energy source. So how does fission work? Nuclear fission produces the energy that makes an atomic bomb explode. It's the opposite of fusion, meaning you split one nucleus into two smaller nuclei, instead of fusing two into one. To trigger a nuclear fission reaction, a neutron is fired at the nucleus of an unstable atom, like uranium-235 or plutonium-239. When they are struck by a neutron, they briefly become uranium-236 and plutonium-240, which they don't want to be. They then split into lighter elements and release 2 or 3 more neutrons. These neutrons hit other uranium or plutonium nuclei, starting a chain reaction that releases enough energy to create a massive explosion. American scientists created 2 bomb designs, called Fat Man and Little Boy. Fat Man had a plutonium-239 core, surrounded by conventional explosives that exert so much force on the core that it implodes on itself, creating enough energy for the explosion to occur. Little Boy, on the other hand, had 2 masses of uranium-235, each below the amount needed to undergo fission, or the critical mass. Then, to detonate, one of the masses gets fired like a bullet towards the other, creating a mass bigger than the critical mass and undergoing fission. In order to preserve the limited uranium supplies, the American scientists could only test one bomb design before using them in the war. The test happened on July 16, 1945, in a desert in New Mexico. The bomb was placed on a tall steel tower to simulate being dropped out of an airplane. Wait, that's not what it sounded like. Play that back. There we go. That's right, the explosion was completely silent. When it detonated, the explosion released 25 kilotons of energy, completely vaporizing the tower, melting desert sand into green glass, and lighting the mountains miles away. The shockwaves traveled over 100 miles. It left an 80-meter wide crater, and 70 years later, the radiation at the site was still 10 times higher than normal. In the decades following World War II, scientists learned to contain the immense power of nuclear fission and use it to produce electricity. Today, over 400 power plants in more than 30 countries use uranium fuel to generate huge amounts of low-carbon energy, one of the cleanest and most powerful ways to produce electricity. But nuclear power comes with risks and challenges. The waste from reactors stays radioactive for thousands of years, and when safety systems fail, the results can be devastating. Scientists are working on harnessing nuclear fusion instead of fission that could one day generate greater quantities of power without producing waste. As we build cleaner energy with nuclear power, the danger of nuclear weapons still exists, with 9 countries continuing to possess nuclear weapons. International agreements promote nuclear disarmament, but to use the science of nuclear energy for social improvement instead of destruction requires international cooperation. Are we up for the challenge? Well, we'd better be.